of course, based on duties. This is one of the objections of many scholars who objected to the constitution, not objecting to particular articles in the constitution, but to the very spirit of the constitution, which was not conducive to the way the Hindu society was designed. So I discussed some of those in that, and then the processes which happen in our society. So 2 minutes you said, I think I spent 5 to 6 minutes. I will spend more on that. Now the second part is that Sita, I will quote, I earlier quoted also one very striking paragraph of Sitaram where he says, a lot of our scholars are very deep, very great scholars of many art knowledge systems and disciplines like yoga, like Ayurveda, Natyashastra, and many other disciplines of our side. But as soon as you talk about the difficult aspects of the ideologies which are trying to destroy us, they, are not ready to discuss it. And this is dangerous because only a society which is practicing can preserve the text and all the traditions and all the axioms, whatever, faiths, or whatever you want to call it. If the society is not living anymore, then, no matter how many texts are translated and preserved, that tradition can be considered as dead. So we have to preserve Hindu society, which will preserve all of these traditions and rituals and living traditions. So that is the main part. In order to preserve that, we need to understand the psyche of the other, because like Napoleon said about war, I say it about Islam, that we may not be interested in Islam, but Islam is interested in us. So by that thing, we have to think about them, we have to know deep about them, because we are in their path of heaven. Until the entire world is converted, their dead relatives will not go to heaven. So it's for their own benefit that they have to convert us. So just by being Hindu, we are preventing their going to heaven. That's why it's important for us to study their psyche and go deep into it. I discussed some other matters in the morning. I would like to discuss here one particular aspect of these two religions. That is weaponization. Now this word is very alien to us. In Hindi, there was no anuvad, there was no word for this. So we recreated a word in retrospect, like train ka banaya tha Hindi mein, laha path gamini, which is a very artificial word because there was no train. So when you had train, you had to invent a word for it. That's how languages respond to it. So weaponization is also a concept which is so alien to us, so foreign to us, that we had to in Hindi invent a word called as Sashasтрikaran. What does this word mean, weaponization in English? Weaponization means turning something which is not a weapon into a weapon, which is not a traditional weapon, making it a weapon. That's how unconventional warfare is fought. Conventional warfare, ethical warfare, which Hindus used to do, is fought, with certain rules, only with certain weapons, only in certain ways. So there are rules of the game, but in the game in which there are no rules, in which you make civilians as a shield to protect your fighters, in which you make women as a shield to protect your fighters, in which you use children as suicide bombers to damage other society, in which you poison wells, burn crops. All of these methods, you are weaponizing things which are not weapons, but you are using them as weapons against our society. And because of our high ethics, for a long time we are unable to understand that these are the things which are being turned into weapons and used against us. But the greatest damage happens when they start turning your institutions, some basic institutions, into weapons. For example, what did they do? They weaponized education. First of all, they killed traditional education. Like, I don't need to go into that story. Dharma has and many others have told the story very, very well. That how they destroyed the native traditional education. And after that, not destroyed completely, of course it is there, this institute is an example, but in wider society they were able to destroy it. And then transplanted that which another knowledge system, another education system, which the game was rigged from the beginning. The education was so that our thoughts, modes, customs would increasingly become European, or if you were to say Christian. We all are living, most of us are living Christian lives in many senses, by being Hindu, by even doing many rituals. But a lot of parts of our lives are Christian because they certain weaponize institutions and mainly education against this. Now, state is the first thing which they weaponize. This is very easy to understand, and yet for Hindus, even this, we were such an evolved civilization. See, every great civilization has seeds of its own demise and own degradation, degeneration in it. By the dint of being so great, we thought that a Rajan will always, a king will always perform Raj Dharma. But that is not so. That was not true with the militias that came inside India and started ruling. We thought that the state will not be weaponized for conversion, so let's say forcing people, because like the story I told earlier also, Kanchi, there is a great Kailashnath temple in Kanchipuram, created by Pallava dynasty. When the Badami Chalukya invaded, and they came upon that temple, they were so impressed that they created its image in Pattakal Virupaksha temple. Now, when the Rashtrakutas invaded Chalukya capital, they were so inspired by Virupaksha temple that they created what is now in Ellora, the great Kailash temple. So, one king, three dynasties, three places, they get inspired by some temple deep in south and create, at that time I think it was the northernmost Dravid temple created. It's a pure Dravid temple, rocket. After that in Bastar they have created some other Dravid temples, but that was in later era by Kakatiyas. So that was the earliest of these temples. So this was our experience. We never thought that a state would be weaponized for a particular sect, because our mistake was that we clocked them as another sect. It was not another sect. It was a virus which would destroy every other sect in your society, just like a cancerous cell. Our body has healthy cells, of course. But then a cancerous cell is not just another cancerous growth, it's not just another growth of just another tissue. It's a growth which will destroy every other system, every other tissue in your body. So we failed to understand at first that this is so. We clocked them as just another sect. That mistake cost us very heavy, because we did not think that the state would, collaborate so deeply with an invading system and destroy our dharmic institutions all over. So state was easiest to understand, still it was shocking for us. Then of course education, in public life in North, in Hindi has so many of Farsi, Arabic, Turkish, English words now, but earlier Farsi, Arabic, Turkish words, because they changed the language of the code, they changed the language of public communication. All the bolis that we, all the things that we call as dialects now, for example Bundeli, Chambali, Malvi, they would have become great languages had they been allowed to evolve, as some South Indian languages were allowed to evolve after the fall of the classical Sanskrit era. Kannada became a great language, classical language, by translating and creating great text, dharmic text in all walks of life. That's how Malayalam became so. That's Tamil was even earlier. That's how Telugu became so. This would have happened in the north also, had Islam not intervened. So instead of that, there was an umbrella Manak Hindi sort of language, which got created by mixing others.
Even still, they had any Brajbhasha and all other poetry and great things that happened.
Very few of those things happened.
But what prevented other languages evolved to
yes.
languages?
So because the public language, there were granths. For example, Manas itself is written in Avari, so one dialect, but that was not carried on. What happened is that after that also a lot of destruction happened. And then this umbrella language was created. Due to that, a lot of words were changed. And that's why a lot of South Indians also resent, because in Hindi there is a lot of Farsi, Arabic, Turkish words, which are not there in other languages, which do not have such great touch with Islam. So this is, then they weaponized language and state and education in a way which destroyed the connections between two languages. Because Sanskrit connects all the languages of India. It is the soul. In that sense, the darshanik, the philosophical soul, which connects, like the sutra. It is that sutra in that garland which connects all of it. Now you've taken that sutra off, these flowers are fighting with each other, because now the common things are Arabic, Turkish and English, which will make us fight, which will not unite us. So they weaponize language in that sense. They weaponize education. They weaponize state. Then they weaponize economy. So now economy, because Christianity is very adaptive, very evolved. And if you read their history, it is so brilliant to see. It's very fascinating to study the enemy also. Thomas Aquinas comes in 13th century. Now he is one of the greatest Christian saints to come, and he is, according to me, He is perhaps the greatest Christian ideologue to come from them. Without him, Christianity would not have survived. So what does he do? Earlier, Christianity was used to blind faith, blind belief in dogmatic people like Tertullian, like St. Augustine. There is a famous quote by Tertullian, I believe because it's impossible, I know it's true because it cannot happen, and such absurd things. So basically saying belief is because even while it is not rational, logical at all, even when it's completely contrary to your experience and all, belief is that only and nothing else. So that was the era in which they went on until 7th, 8th century, 8th, 9th century this time. Now Thomas Aquinas comes and his group of scholastics, he belonged to a school called scholastics. And what he sees is that the era of reason, age of reason and rationality is coming. He sees that coming. He is at the helm of Renaissance. And he willingly ditches 80% of Christian peripherals, preserves the core, the importance of church, central Christian dogmas, importance of church, but incorporates so-called scientific method into inquiry. He opens scientific chairs, so-called scientific chairs in all of the Christian seminaries, and the goal is to prove Christianity through reason and law. And he also there at one point he very clearly says the goal of the university and this is the seed of the university system. That's how deeply education is weaponized. This is the seed of the modern contemporary education system. And what is the goal of this university system? And he very clearly says the goal of the university is not to discover something new. The goal of the university is to already prove what's written in the Bible. He makes it extremely clear. We will not let you go. So all this scientific urge that you are having, we will limit it, control it, give it some fire, but then limit it so you do not go outside the boundaries. Christianity, the hold of church, for them, all of Christianity comes down to one point. Is church important or not? Because the moment church is unimportant, see, everyone is free to follow whatever they want. If they don't like Bible, they will not follow. That's why there was this sect called Gnostics in Egypt and Northern Africa. Gnostics said they introduced meditation because what happens is that a lot of these Asuric sects also rose in history, but then once again when they got in touch with Dharmic traditions and sects, they would imbibe a lot of that, and sometimes even those bad things would disappear, the seed would disappear and new things would come. Gnostics, if you read the Gospel of Thomas, which is not the Gospel given in the Bible, it is a blasphemic Gospel which was discovered later on. If you read it, it reads like a Vedantic text. What were their central things? They said that in order to reach Jesus and Jehovah, you don't need the authority of the church. You can do meditation. Now, the moment you say this, so the authority of church is broached and they are removed from the central place. So church hunted every single person down and killed them. Because how can you remove church from the central authority? So this was their central. Always their fight is you cannot remove the mediator. In Hindi and Urdu we call that dalal. So because dalal ka pura his entire goal is my dalali should not you should not remove that from the situation because that is my livelihood. So all their concern is this one. So what Thomas Aquinas does is that he actually distorts reason, rationality, logic in order to serve Christianity, in order to serve the central Christian myths and dogma. And that's how they keep on doing for all of this. So they weaponize education and they pervert the education system in a way which is weaponized against us. For example, what is peer review? Peer review is nothing, it is just a gang of 7 or 8 people who already are hold a belief, the central belief of church or any system. And you are accepted into that group only when they make you edit your paper and thesis so many times it stops becoming what you intended it to be. And you completely do the conversion process. You complete the conversion process, you become them. Only then they accept you. So they say you have to play the game by entering and infiltrating the university. That's not going to happen. The only strategy which is successful is ek dhakka aur do, invade the castle, completely occupy them, eliminate everyone who is there. Only then you are gonna do something new. Otherwise, what happens is that with this slow process, and conversion is a very slow process. So this conversion, Abhi, right now they are aiming at the short conversion. But if you read the text, conversion is a lifelong process in which you purge the non-Christianity within you one by one by one by one. Peer review process is that only. Why? Now you'll say, how will you decide? Where is the internal value system? See, how does a Hindu know what's written in the Vedas or text or anything is true or not? Everything that is written there is verifiable, not in the external laboratory, but in the internal laboratory. Vedas are not Shabda Praman because we have to blindly believe in something that has been said. It is so because for thousands of years, countless of Jnanis and Jivan Muktas and yogis have done meditation, gone through Diksha and found this to be literally true, 100% true. And they have all confirmed, and like a scientific truth, theory, which can be disproved even with one example which is contrary to what the theory states. Similarly, the Shastric truth can also be proven like that, but nobody has been able to do that. So that it's not the belief system, it's a very different system. Now they had no ways of proving because there is no truth in it. And there is no methodology of testing what is true and not. Satyapan ka koi tool nahi. How do you test what is written, whether it is true or not? For them there is no method. That's why my word against yours. That's why there is so much violence. My interpretation of Bible is correct, your interpretation of Bible is correct. Now it goes to absurd extremes. They still debate on abortion. Whether for Hindus has always been very clear, if the mother is in danger, if it's for, then it's not wrong to abort, otherwise of course it's a bad thing to do. But if your mother is dying, if something more serious is happening, for Hindus that was never a debate, but they are still debating. And they go to absurd extreme limits. For example, Arun Shari quotes one very interesting example in his World of Fatwas, that once in Iraq, two groups of Maulanas fought on how many teeth does a horse have. So, and they got on this, I should not sully the word Shastra, but this debate on how many teeth does a horse have, and they are debating, and subah se sham ho gayi. Then one bichara whose Islam was not as mature in him, 14 years old boy said, but sir, we can go and check the horse's mouth and see how many teeth he has. And they scold him down. Well, shut up, this is not how scholarship is done. What absurd idea to count, teeth of the horse. No, we'll study it for 1 year, how many teeth does a horse have, and then we'll come back. And they go, and they reams of thousands of pages in those times, and then they go to those limits. This is when you have no means, no pramana system. We have the entire science of pramanas, that how many pramanas are there, how do you know what you know is true. That entire science is there. So, but they had no means of pramana, my word against yours, so my interpretation against yours. In Protestant wars, lakhs and lakhs of people died. There was so much bloodshed because every small principality adopted one branch of Christianity and said that we know the only possible interpretation of the Bible, every other interpretation is not wrong but evil, and so let's kill everyone else. So this is how all of these wars happen, this is how all of this violence happens. So that's why, first of all, they have no means of checking what's written, whether it is true or not. It's one person's word against another. That's why they have to create a gang of 7-8%, which is the peer review group, which is the university system, and that's how they ensure that what is true and what is not true. So, but we always, our civilization always had many means of knowing what is being claimed as true, whether it is true or not. So we never had this problem. So the way the entire university system is designed is weaponization. Now let me talk about give one more example about the nomenclature of different disciplines and subjects. For example, the way they define sociology and anthropology. Sociology is they define as the science what you use to study your own society. Anthropology, they say, is the science with which you study the other society. And in India, they implemented anthropology in what we call now as SC and ST. And they implemented sociology on the, what we call as Savarna and some OBCs. So just by this classification of anthropology and sociology, they virtually declared and made us accept that those people are not Hindus and right for conversion. So imagine the process of conversion sat in deciding the nomenclature of the university system. The moment we accept this game, start playing this game, they have won. Because sooner or later down the lane, you will accept their classification, you accept their nomenclature. This is how deeply they have weaponized knowledge, not just humanities, somewhere sciences, but science has a reality check. Why can you not pervert science so much? They use technology and pervert it, that's true. Science को क्यों नहीं कर सकते? Because it has a reality check. Humanities does not have a reality check. This is a major issue of science and religion also there. Not Dharma is not religion. When I say science versus religion, it's only Christianity. So that's a major issue between them, because science says, how do I know what's written in the Bible is true or not? We should have a method where we can prove whether it is true or not. So that's where science comes. It is one sort of pramana, one or two sorts of pramana, but not other pramanas, but at least there is a pramana there. In biblical belief system, there is no pramana. We have an entire science of pramana. So this is how they weaponized education. Now, of course, we all know there is marriage. We think of marriage as what? A sacred thing. When we are going to marry our kids, our daughters, our sons, we think of they should get a good partner who will, there will be sahar, there will be peace and harmony at home, they will be able to have santati, children, and then will be able to bring them up in peaceful, enriching environment. This is how you think. How do they think? Shall I get this woman who is not of my religion? So I will increase one number. So in my local mosque, I will be known as the person who increased 3 or 4 number, and as many children as you have is how many new Muslims you have inducted into the system. And for them it's all number 2. So weaponizing marriage, which we cannot even think of. Then they weaponize even death, and I'm not talking of jihad. Jihad is one part, of course, we all know how jihad is and how they weaponize that. I talked about this in morning or not? Yeah, that they weaponize life after death also. How? When Hindus die, what happens to our bodies? Most of us, we are cremated, right? Yeah. Even the ashes are, washed away in the river. We keep nothing, and like it should happen, we keep nothing, because it's nashwar hai, and we burn the body and we, wash away the ashes. But when a Muslim or a Christian dies, what happens?
Buried.
They bury. When they bury, what happens? They occupy land. And with Christians, they occupy it in a coffin so that the corpse doesn't even rot very soon. And then they cement it, and then they put plaques on it. So after dying, their dead body is doing jihad, land jihad. So 1,000 years later, your country will be a huge Christian graveyard, where these crosses are appearing. If you go in Telangana and some places in Andhra, if you travel by train, it's already happened at so many places. So imagine a system which has weaponized dead bodies, not just jihad. Weaponize this also. And so when you turn every aspect of life into war, of course you get a fair advantage over people like us who have many dimensions of life, and not just war. War is one dimension. The thing with us is that we have forgotten even that dimension now. Shastra ki bahut kami hai. Parantu, all aspects of life, when they are weaponized, this is what happens. Now, what happens to civic society? It becomes very bad. For example, when you weaponize all aspects of life, the life is no longer livable. So we cannot become that. But then there is nothing left to preserve. If you become people like that, then there is nothing. If you treat your women like they do, if you treat your children like they do, then you are no longer, there is nothing worth saving in that. In Peshawar, I forget the year, 2016 or 17 or something. Their society has degraded to a level, and this is all happening between Muslims, it's not even non-Muslims. They enter a school and shoot dead 165 children as young as 4 years old in the head, just because they are wrong sort of Muslims. Not even Shia Sunni. They are, a lot of them are Sunnis also, but they don't consider their parents or them to be right kind of Muslims. So this life is not livable. They have come to a point where their society is so bad, where anything can happen to any woman who is somewhere left in, after dark. So this is the society. These are the pitfalls of society which has completely weaponized. But that society is very dangerous for your society, because when your women are free, as they should be, they see them as targets. So they weaponize all of this, they weaponize all aspects of life and make your life very difficult. That's why we have to understand them and counter them in weaponizing some aspects of life. We can also weaponize the state for us. We can also weaponize economy. We can also weaponize market. We can also weaponize many other aspects of life. Maybe not marriage. Maybe not the personal life, maybe not the ritualistic life, but many other aspects we can memorize. That is extremely important to understand. Once you start understanding them, solutions will start coming on their own, very easily on their own. We don't even need to suggest an entire blueprint or plan of what to do, but this is what happens. I will share one more thing and then maybe some questions if they are there.
Yeah.
Christianity, I call it like civilization snipers. What does a sniper do? He sits for hours and hours without moving, as if he is not even there. And upon the most opportune moment, he strikes. So he makes himself invisible for a certain period of time, fooling the victim that he is no longer there. And then at the very right moment, he strikes. So when we say हमारी सरकार है, and we become complacent, that is not true. हमारी सरकार तब होगी when we get some of them come back to ourselves. That is the balance. That is called as हमारी सरकार. Otherwise, what happens is that they move in suspended animation. For example, Andhra, I don't know the exact number. Nobody knows. All are estimates. Some say 20%. I don't believe 20% or so. But 10-12% is converted. So maybe 12%. Huh?
Maybe more than that, sir.
Maybe more than that.
There was an unofficial estimate that during YSR Reddy's duration, more than 30,000 churches were constructed.
Yeah.
This could be higher side, but you can imagine the kind of conversion.
Yeah, so their churches,
in those 10 years itself.
churches are always overrepresented. So there will not be as many Christians as the church building is crazy, fanatically crazy.
Those 10 years they had a free
But they are
reign.
meant.
Yeah. And even during Jagan's time, for 5 years,
Yeah.
because he also continued the same thing what his dad started.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but exact numbers are never there. But let's say 15, 12, whatever percentage is there. Now you say your sarkar is there, your government is there. Your government means what? At best, they have stopped the process. It has not stopped. It has become very slow. But let's say they completely stop. But if you are not getting them back, imagine when your government goes out of power. What will happen? They will start right from where they left off, like suspended animation, 13%, 15%, and they will move for there. So your government means when you convert them back, when you deconvert them. Let's not also call it conversion, deconvert them back to your society.
Ghar wapsi.
Ghar wapsi aapko karna hai, shuddhi, ghar wapsi, whatever you call it. The process is important, whatever word flies. We should do that. Only then it is your. Otherwise, they wait for some times. See, Andhra is such a shocking case. It's no Nagaland, it's no Mizoram.
Yeah.
It's not a peripheral culture where we could not influence as much as we did. It's the land of Tenali.
Absolutely.
It's a core Vedic land.
Yes.
Today, some of the greatest Vedic scholars come from that land. Yeah, some of the greatest of Vedic scholars and traditions come from that land. If they were able to do that in 10 years, and what happened? What was the window they got? What was the snapshot?
10 years.
10 years of this, and also central government, which was also Christian.
Exactly, correct.
So Sonia Gandhi and YSR and Jagan, they got this free reign, this tango between the central and the state government. It happened in 2 states. More Arunachal Pradesh also they destroyed in that period, and Andhra Pradesh they also destroyed. So this is what they do, and a civilization 5,000 years old, but in a matter of 10 years, imagine matter of 10 years. They are able to do this. So they are civilization snipers. And they are viruses. So when COVID came, I wrote an article which also got very famous. I said the longest running pandemic in the history of humanity is not COVID or anything, it's Christianity. Because it is a virus, it infects you, makes you, unalive, kills you, because everything that is living, all the rituals, all the customs, everything they make it stop. Your deities are gone, their worship is gone, your ways of life are gone. And when they are done with you, they move on to some other god.
Correct.
This is how the Arabs could not defeat us. But then Arabs converted Persians, Persians converted Turks, then Turks converted us. So it came to us by on 3rd, 4th level. So this is what they do. So we have to be very careful, like a virus, until you eliminate the last cell. And I'm not talking of people, individuals, I'm talking of ideology. This is my ghar wapsi in reconversion, deconversion only. Only then you think that you can counter them. So all of these strategies are extremely important to understand that how they behave. This nature can be seen in many, many ways. For example, in Constantinople, which used to be a pagan like us, Hindu sort of city, which was Byzantium at that time.
Yes, Byzantium.
Byzantium at that time, pagan city, which was converted to Constantinople when Constantine, Emperor Constantine of Roman Empire, converted to Christianity, which then became Istanbul when it converted to Islam. So how did it happen? The Arabs, the first attacks on Constantinople were made in 750 something. Arabs only reached their attack, 2 or 3 attacks. Then they repelled them with Greek fire, their favorite way of Greek military, so they repelled them. They kept attacking intermittently for 800 years. And finally Constantinople fell in 1453. Imagine a civilization as dogged. 800 years, same city, hundreds and hundreds of attacks. But we have to get it. When you do that kind of, that is Asurik Tapasya, but it is Tapasya. All our Asuras are very good at that. That's how they are all powerful. Otherwise the Maya will not hold. This will not be as interesting a game as it is. So that kind of doggedness, that 800 years they kept knocking at that gate and finally made it fall. India, 500 years later. First attack was in Sindh was in 8th century itself.
No,
8th century, I am saying. 8th century itself. Then only in 13th century are they able to establish Delhi Sultanate. So for that 200-300 kilometers, 300-400 kilometers, they had to, if you like a crow's distance, bird's distance, that is, it took them 500 years, but 500 they kept living. If you see the history of many communities and tribes, one sect is not able to convert, another is not able to, but second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh generation is able to convert. They keep doing it. So this, if you understand their doggedness, their sniping ability, then we have solutions where we are able to, implement against them and win. That's why Ayodhya is a very, very great achievement for us. No pagan, no traditional society before this has ever been able to take by force, not with request, to take by force one of its central places of worship that we have done. We should be proud of it. No matter how it happened, no matter how many years it took.
Yes.
But we did it, and it only takes one example. Now the example is there. That's why they are so frustrated. Because the logic that worked in Ram temple, why should it not in Krishna temple in Mathura? Why should it not in Shiva temple in Kashi? And why should it not in the temple down my street? Why is my temple less important than your temple?
Correct.
Then I will build my temple also. So this they are afraid of this because they are very bad losers. They don't know how to lose. In their history, I've written this. Islam has never lost in the sense that Islam has always proceeded even when their armies have lost. So this is also very important to understand. How does their psyche work? So when Islamic armies invade some country, they defeat your Kshatriyas. After that, what do? Islamic armies on the point of sword convert the population, right? What happens when the non-Islamic armies defeat an Islamic army in an Islamic country? Does the opposite happen? No. So a very great example I'll tell you. Genghis Khan was not a Muslim because of the Khan surname. A lot of people mistake. Khan was not. Khan is a pagan surname which the Muslims adopted from Genghis Khan, Mongols, and not the other way around. So his grandson Halaku Khan invades Baghdad, which was the seat of Abbasid Caliphate, the most important Islamic center at that time. The Khalifa was there, and it was one of the most populous cities. And it is called as the so-called golden age of Islam, which is not actually Islamic age. They have come upon the pagan great civilizations of Persia and Byzantium and Mesopotamia, and they are using that. So, but the point is Halaku Khan, who is a pagan, Murti worshipping, hated idolater, he invades, defeats Baghdad, does a genocide of 40% of the population. There are no exact figures, but almost half of the population is gone. And then they request, oh, our Khalifa, his blood should not be shed. It is our tradition. They say, we will respect your tradition. So what do? They put the Khalifa in carpets and make him get trampled under the foot of elephants. So the blood didn't spill, but they still killed him. That's how they treat the most powerful Islamic empire at that time. Now you would think this is the death of Islam. No, you would think, how do they recover from this? But they do. And how? So the entire population is Muslim, or at least 80-90% is Muslim. And then this Mongol court comes, they have at best 20-30 officers, generals, and the Mongol king, Halaku Khan. What happens is that now the Islamic population gets active. It becomes the converting agent and not the state. Now the Islamic population becomes active. They start convincing some of the courtiers, because the Mongols are very lenient, and it's the wrong word, wrongly tolerant in the cases of religion. They say if they don't want to worship them, we will not force them to worship our deities. They must worship their own deities. They are not even aware that they have no deities left. Whatever deities were there in Iran, in Iraq, what is now, they are long gone. Islam has already killed all of them, their worship. So they are not aware of this. They say, let them do their own, follow their own tradition. We'll follow our own tradition. But some of this population, they start approaching the courtiers and start saying, if you become Muslim, or if you start, following our tradition also, you will have ease in controlling the population, which is Muslim. So to a pagan ear, it sounds like if I also follow one more God, like Isa says, one more God, how does it harm me? So Allah must also be there. It's okay, we respect Allah also. And then they convince him he is the highest God and you should leave. So they start converting some of the courtiers. And Halaku Khan dies. After that his son comes, who is also pagan, Murti Pujak, he worships Vigrahas. But he is also like that. Then his son, who is, I forget the name, he is a very hardcore Buddhist. So Buddhists have this idea of being very particular of your own, and he's very particular. He even does job and all in court. He's very famous for that. But he also does not try to convert the population or the courtier back to the pagan tradition. And by this time, all this time, Islam is suspended in animation, watching, waiting for its time. And by the time also converting the courtiers. What happens is that fourth generation, three generation, they spend as very quiet, very peaceful people. Fourth generation, Ghazan comes. Now he is a very selfish sort of guy. Ghazan thinks, they say, if you convert to Islam, all your courtiers have also accepted Islam. If you also accept Islam, you will be able to rule it. And the terminology in which they couch the conversion is very difficult for us to understand. Iman lana hai. Hindi mein kaise bolenge? Iman lana hai. To bring faith. It doesn't seem very harmful to our ears to bring faith. Bring faith in Islam, ठीक है. हम अगर इसमें करते हैं तो उसमें भी करेंगे. But for them it's a very different thing. That you will get to know only gradually. That now we have accepted this, don't do this, throw these deities out and all. That happens very gradually. And to bring faith, accept Jesus as your savior. अभी तो पहले तो हिंदू को समझ में नहीं आएगा. How do you accept someone else as your savior?
भाई दावत देते हैं.
हाँ?
दावत देते हैं.
हाँ, दावत देते. So it's couched in a terminology which non-monotheists are unable to understand at first. If they are not informed by their good leaders that this is how these frauds actually couch their terminology in. So Ghazan of course does not know. Mongols are rude, wild people, very good fighters, but they are not aware of this. Ghazan converts. So in fourth generation, one of the greatest, strongest pagan empires of history, which gave the worst defeat to Islam, the kings convert to the religion of the converted, of the population. That's how they say Islam has never lost. We win in victory, we win in loss. So the key to understand is not that their armies have lost so many times. Pakistan to har baar harta hai na. But every time Muslims are increasing in Pakistan, every time Muslims are increasing here. So for them it's winning. Everything. And they don't care about themselves. Suicide bomber, you won't be able to understand suicide bomber. He dies, of course he dies, but he's doing it for Islam. Pakistan is a suicide bombing country. It doesn't care about itself at all. It knows that it will completely immolate itself in the service of Islam. They are ready to do it. They are very clear. If you read their Hussain Haqqani, one of their former military rulers, he has written a book, Pakistan from Mosque to Military. Its central policy, first is to hate Hindus. They write it in their books. Official policy, hate Hindus, destroy Hindus. Second is to be the sword of Islam. Third is to use US to fund us in our game by posing to them that we are fighting terrorism and while funding terrorism on the side. So this is their official policy. That's how they think. That's how deep the game they play. If you understand them, you are able to give an answer to them. We have started doing that in many ways. First of all is to reclaim your real estate from that. And once you start thinking, I keep proposing to people, when we die, of course, we should not change our rituals. But when every Hindu dies, you should reserve bhumi equivalent to Yajna as a reserved forest. And when there are 10,000 such bhumis in a certain area, you should build a temple in between because they are all Hindus. So at least we will have a claim on one sampradaya should build one temple and all of this should happen. It's wild, wacky, crazy idea, I am saying. But
I mean,
well,
Mathvas have resolved it by having Vrindavanas.
yeah.
And Raghavendra Mattas with Vrindavanas across the country is an example which is already in operation.
Yes, yes. I am saying force the state also at some point to do this. That otherwise, how will you state ke level pe bhi hona chahiye? We should do it. Society should always do it. But at the level of the state, it should also happen. This is one of very small idea. But I am saying it's extremely necessary to understand the modus operandi. We think that it's very easy. Islam is very easy to understand. Christianity is very easy to understand. But if you see their process, it's very, very, very nuanced, very complex. For example, somebody asked me yesterday, how do you trust someone who has done Dharma? So I told them, study Spanish Inquisition. You will know how to. So what did they do? When the Spaniards made the Inquisition, converted the Moors, the Muslims, back to Christianity, they did two things. First of all, they have this concept of godfather, godmother. What is a godfather? That entire concept seems very weird. But godfather or godmother was a person appointed by the church to all newly converted people, whether they were following Christian rituals or not. Were they to check whether they were not following the old pagan rituals, whether they are bringing up their kids in Christianity or in the old religion itself. So first of all, this agency of godfather, godmother. Second, they declared that on Fridays, those newly converted people could not close the doors of their house, so that Christians could peep in and see whether they were not offering namaz or not. So these are like, I read a book in which the author was criticizing how brutal was the Inquisition. I said, wonderful, this is the way you do it. How will you do it when you do Dharma? How will you make sure that they have read their Dharma? This is not study their methods, they have done it. They have already done it, they have created a template. The moment we become interested in them more than they are interested in us, we will start. For example, I take this case of Nagaland again and again. There are tribes living on, there is no such thing as Naga tribe. Nagaland is full of 17 to 18 tribes, all speaking different languages, completely unintelligible to each other. There is no such thing as Naga language or tribe. It's a blanket term created by British. There is a tribe, Kiminian, which lives on Burmese border. In their capital, Kohima, the tribe which inhabits Kohima and that Kohima district is Angami. So this Angami and Kiminian, most of the Kiminians are not even aware that Angamis exist. They have never been to Kohima, their own state capital. Their connection is more to Burma. And there is no border there. I have walked into Burma many times without passport visa. Walked into like 20-30 kilometers into their cities. Because in the mountains, Burmese government has no longer any hold. Indian army rules in their mountains also. All these mountain tribes. So they are not aware of each other. But in Belgium, there in Brussels, there is an institute called the Institute of Unrecognized People, Unrepresented People. Now this institute has a file on both of the tribes, Mingan and Angar. That's how they rule us. When you take hold of narrative of the world, when you take hold of all these stories, that's how they. So first of all, you need to have files on everything and everyone under the sun. I say that Vishwa Guru to hai, knowledge mein to hai. Sabse pehle, we need to have an opinion of everything and everyone under the sun. What is the Hindu way of looking at this? What is the Hindu way of looking at that? We should have an opinion. We should start studying all of that. Once you do that, more and more of these nuances you will notice, more and more of these tricks you will understand. This is what you can implement, and you can do some things you are doing in your daily life, like routine. You can recognize that to achieve the dharmic goals. It's very easy. Just say there is at the risk of saying it here, Akshay Patra के ऊपर एक comment था. There is a meme, very famous meme in a cricket ground, in which if many of you would have seen someone is standing like this, कुछ हार वार गए हैं. तो उसमें मदर टेरेसा का वो लगा के कहा, she is talking to Akshay Patra, will you feed 10 lakh people every year and you don't even convert them? तुम्हारी technique ही गलत. So this is how they look at us, that you are being stupid. that you do all of this, but you do
But
this and
ISKCON
then
is,
we harvest.
sir, but ISKCON is not belong to any.
No, ISKCON is not.
ISKCON
Lots of
is
our,
not belong to any Dvaita. Dvaita. It is a private. It is not a Dvaita. It is not a. It is independent. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah,
They
no,
are not
no,
stick on.
no, that's a different issue.
They follow the Gaudiya philosophy.
Gaudiya, but it is
Yeah.
not powerful, sir.
Yeah, but that's a different issue. What I'm saying is, Akshay Patra or ISKCON or anyone else, they are commenting even on, see, ISKCON is more into the conversion business than other, they take people.
Yeah.
This is an Akshay Patra is part of, not part, earlier they were part, but sister organization sort of. Even they are accused by seen by Christianity from outside as, oh look these people, they feed everyone and they don't even convert. So this is how they look at us. There are a lot of things that we do which we can use it for dharmic purposes, which we are not now, but which is an expedient measure now. If we don't do it now, then we can revel in our high virtue, which is of no use. Once you are dead, your virtue is also gone.
Correct.
Once a civilization is dead, your virtue is also gone. You can hold those virtues only as long as you live, and if you live. So we have to win first. We have to defeat the niche ideologies first, and then you get somewhere. That's why I keep talking about Shatrubodh. I am done. Thank you. If there is any mistake, sir, all of you, I apologize. And now, of course, any comments, questions, sir?
I do have one on the last part. One thing very interesting about Muslims, starting from Muslim women, more importantly, than even men. The claim that we are ready to suffer in this world so that we attain the favor of Allah in the other world is of a very exceptionally high order of faith that they carry. Now, if somebody is ready to give up all the comforts of life, seeking something which is beyond, that actually is a matter of strength even as per Shastras. To be able to give up these things, the regular day-to-day kind of all kinds of comforts,
Yeah.
to completely shun that, because these are actually tuchha. I mean, for this sake, can we actually give up? Because you use the word iman, the kind of honor that they give to that word is of a different order altogether. Even if Bhagavad Gita indeed tell Shraddhavan Labhate Jnanam, but the sense of Shraddha that actually is found, if we have to comment in our language, the Shraddha that a Muslim has towards their Jannat is of a completely different order as opposed to the collection of all Hindus put together. An average Muslim, anybody that you pick, would have a greater faith in their Paraloka. And the fact that that is something which is missing amongst Hindus also means that we have become rather more self-centered and do not have any sense of what is beyond.
Yeah.
So it's a self-critique which also requires to be seen, which is a matter of here one need not even think about the Shatru Rekam, because internally itself, Shatru would be this self-centeredness, completely looking one's own self in a manner where we are isolated from the rest of the world. This strength that they carry, where they are ready to say like zakat, is an institutional channel. Now, we are aware that Shukracharya has taught us. There's to Bali Chakravarti is informed, and that's a niti which is to be applied across the board. Dharmaya yasasya arthaya kamaya svajanaya cha panchadha vibhajan vittam ihamutta chamodate. If you have 6 rupees that you earn, 1 rupee goes to the Raja, and the other 5 rupees are to be spent in such a manner that 1 rupee goes for Dharma. Dharma is something where yajnas and so on. 1 rupee goes to yashas, which is primarily through the kind of activities like Annadana or construction of these charitable institution activities and so on. 1 for Artha, which means that you have to invest that in order to grow your wealth. 1 for Kama, for whatever your desire that you intend to spend on. and the last one to ensure that your own family and your loved ones are taken care of. Now, zakat is hardly say 10%. Here you are speaking about say 20 plus 20, 40% for say activities which are relating to Parloka. Because Dharma and Yasas both are actually with respect to Parloka that you actually see. This memory of how we spend our money and how we actually have to ensure that our own kind of operations in practice ought to be, that collective memory is also something that has been rather say of the kind of conscious memory, and it's not in practice.
Yeah.
So to ensure that this kind of a clarity comes back as a collective is a kind of a thing which would by itself create a force so strong that nobody would touch you, because they see that oh, they are already say so strong, you can't actually go near them. I mean, to create that kind of a impenetrable sense of say protective wall in the minds of the other, that we should not touch this because say we at least have to learn from them but nothing else, is a kind of a thing which is a higher sense of Svyambodh is something that comes to my mind.
Yeah, of course. So that's why that part, so a lot of people also suggested that you should have written 2 books instead of 1. I said I didn't want to separate them. I didn't want people to think that one can exist without the other in this sense. Writing only of Shatrubodh later on and then first Svyambodh or later, that I did not want to do. So the two go together. What happens is that it's also necessary to study the Shatru, because just like I said, it's like a virus, which is a new virus, which you have never encountered before. You cannot prepare for infinite number of enemies, because their nature can be infinitely different. Any time some new enemy can come. So what happens? First contact, like a virus, first damage, which is significant. And after that damage, you study that, you make a vaccine, and after the population which survives has become immune to it. So this is the process with the new virus. And they are viruses. So they have to be studied like this. So their study is separate. Of course we should do this.
I mean, that's where say the Ayurveda approach does not actually take the germ theory, no?
Yeah.
It rather says that our own ability in terms of our immune system must be strong enough that say does not concern whether they are viruses or bacteria or something else.
That's true in 95% of the cases. There are viruses so strong that you cannot, with general hygiene and routine, you cannot resist them. For example,
no, I'm not saying there should not be Oshadis. The Ayurveda does have Aushadas.
But otherwise, you should have a very healthy. See, that degraded only then we became like this. So our own sense of how we lived, that degraded. Now what happens like China, it degraded in China also. They remember 19th century as the century of humiliation. They have official designation. 19th century is the century of humiliation by the West, because they were not ruled directly by the West, but the way churches and Western institutions are all over China, the way they destroyed their society from within is, they remember that very deeply. Now they are taking revenge. So what has happened is, China says this very beautifully and also puts it across also in a very novel way. They say we don't want to become like America. So, and how do they say? Their economy is now 20 trillion something, US is 30 trillion. They say we'll reach 30 trillion soon, that's not a problem. But because China's size is very big, no, 1.4 billion, US is 33 crores or something, 33, 34 crores or something. They say we do not want all of our individuals to be as rich and prosperous as yours. They have food, they have house, they have basic necessities, that's enough. Now they put everything into Chinese civilization so that it can destroy all its enemies. So they are differing from the West by playing the game at first, but then they changed it midway, completely changed it midway. We don't want infinitely people to get more and more prosperous, more and more free. No, we will control it. Chinese party is controlling it, and it's only in name it's Communist Party. It's very much a Chinese party now. After Mao's death, then completely put China back into the great Chinese ancient tradition. It is no longer, it has nothing to do with communism, the only thing it uses it so that it does not lose power. Otherwise, apart from politics, it's not communist at all. So their energy is coming back through their state. That is also possible. I am not saying the same will play out here, but we have to bring the energy back somewhere. Now, I keep saying they are very bad users. So, for example, this the thing with women, that women thinking sacrificing themselves for afterlife. Another interesting thing is women have no afterlife. They don't go to Jannah, heaven. A lot of them keep asking, what will happen to you? You will get huris, but are we those huris? Or, and there are very memes that is Jeevan mein abhi isi ko jhela, and then men like this also in Jannah, and we have to search them also. So they say, what happens to women? And there is no answer. There are some हाँ ठीक है वो भी कहीं होंगे, there will be some like receptionist or something, but not greater than that. The thing is they have not lost. अभी उनका that power is raw animal asuric power of raw unity. 2 billion, 1 billion women wearing burqa, not all of them wearing burqa, but that power of oneness in that identity, that unity. The moment it collapses, it will collapse very soon. Islam it's a very bad loser. The moment it starts, in 1950s they were converting lock, stock and barrel in Middle East. To Christianity, of course, because that's another predatory religion.
No,
But
what happened in 1950s?
the 1950s, then they found oil. And so all the Wahhabis and all these people, they get, the finance once again. And so they change the tide again. Tamim Ansari has written a wonderful book, another of their scholar, Destiny Disrupted. So I started reading this book, and he, in the introduction, he says, Muslims believe it was their destiny to become the richest and most powerful power on planet, the greatest power on planet. Because if you see Middle Ages, Saladin and all, they were also at least equal. And until the Turkish Caliphate, the Ottoman Caliphate, they were one of the greatest powers. After that, what happens in last 350, 400 years, after scientific revolution there, Europe, Western Europe surges ahead. So Christendom surges ahead. Otherwise, they were always in backwaters for 500-600 years. So they say it is destiny disrupted. We are just getting there back again. So first of all, I thought this is a scholar in American university. He must be mocking this. Midway into it, I realized he believes it. He believes it was the destiny of Muslims to rule the world. Now they are again getting. So they see it as that era. When they were down and out, they were converting these people, Wahhabis and all. They were not able to do anything. But what happened is that they found oil, and all of these ideologues, they found something to. That's why earth is extremely important. I'm not saying it is the only thing, but once they get hold of it, it's very easy for them. And once we get hold of it, and they become weakened, so it's an extremely important part. Otherwise, they were converting to it. But we should not. My guru used to say that we think there are two of these plagues upon us. Well, it's better. Had Islam not been there, imagine how powerful Christianity would have been today. Only one religion converting 4 or 5 continents, only China and India remaining, we would not have been able to face Christianity just on our own. But now they also fight each other. That's one view, but I'm saying this is how they are. So many different aspects of it. The more you study, the more you actually find that how deeply nuanced their history has been. It's not simply brute majority, because when something goes on for 1400 years, it's not simply brute majority. There are many nuances to it also. We should understand it. Yeah.
Thoughts are more convincing with regard to the enemy strategy. But now in the era of when you are seeing US searching for rare earth minerals in Pakistan, in contrast to the proselytization and the demographic expansion of Muslims in the UK, I was always wondering, was it a deliberate strategy to increase the population in UK?
Yeah. There are no central directive, but all of them, there are mechanisms. परिवार बढ़ाना है, जितने ज़्यादा बच्चे हैं करते हैं, migrate करना है, अपने लोगों को बुलाना है. For example, what happens in Assam? How do the Bangladeshi Muslims migrate? My driver told me that he says they'll come. 2 families means how? 20 people at least. 2 people, one of them will open a shop. Then they will invite 2 other families and force them to buy only from that shop. So that shop has a running economy, internal economy. Muniji was discussing of closed economy, where they have it. They do it in all over Assam, that's how they migrate. So they keep doing so. It's not one directive, it's not centralized in that way. But they have packaged it into certain behaviors. Small 2-3 behaviors which makes them do, but it's very conscious. They say it, there are so many videos. This in Denmark that problem is also not that severe. They are 1.52% or so. And there's on Germany, Denmark border, they say, you whites, you don't reproduce, you don't fight, We will take over a country. In
Yeah.
10 years, this will be ours. They do it. They openly say it. And it's happening. Their laws are like that. After the Geneva Convention, they have laws that if somebody states civil war in his country, they have to take them in. So I was once, debating with a Swiss Christian, and said, you are letting in so many of them in, and he was, of course, multicultural, secular type, and he said, no, they are not bad, and this. He, of course, had a Turkish girlfriend at that time, so that was also one of the motivations. So, but then he said, I said, you are taking them in. So he said, what do you want us to do? That's our law. So when it's, that's your law, then Bhagwan bachaye aapko, aapka kuch nahi hoga.
So I have a question here. What explains, say, the Hindus accepting the enforced family planning and the Muslims rejecting it outright, and except maybe during, say, Sanjay Gandhi's tirade, there's no other time where, say, some kind of an action against that was ever taken.
Because they have always created a state within a state. They have parallel institutions for everything that you create.
Agreed.
You have your book, constitution, which
Fantastic.
you are supposed to follow. Hindus are told to follow. They have their own book.
But actually, that is true for us also, no? See,
So, if I can add,
but not that.
why part is when it comes to insofar as one common aspect about Islam and Sanatana Dharma is that both have karmakanda. Islam has a karmakanda of an extreme kind where they do not even have any sense of prayaschitta. Ours is more nuanced, it is more comprehensive, and theirs is a kind of some shoddy work of copying these and say making wherever, say, they have wanted some distinctions made, they made something and so on.
Yeah.
So karmakanda being common and not being there for Christianity is a very significant kind of a difference. Secularism works in a European framework in Christianity because karmakanda is not given by Bible. It is created by the church. Whereas in the Quran or in the Smritis, we have directly, say, what ought to be done for what kind of a thing, right from, say, the time you wake up till you sleep, from the time you are you are conceived to, say, your post-death. The entire sequence of life is completely, say, sketched.
Ritualized.
So that kind of karmakanda is present in Sanatana Dharma as strongly as anybody can imagine.
Yeah.
And it so
there is
turns out
difference.
that we have actually, say, whether it be through Brahma Samaj or through Sayari Samaj and so on and so forth, the simplification factor to try and, say, move away from karmakanda also means that, say, you get uprooted in as quick a manner as possible, which did not happen with Islam and the practitioners of Islam, because they stuck to their karmakanda irrespective of what. So much so that they'll say, we'd like to have a holiday on Friday, we'd like to have, say, in the wherever you are, you actually, say, do namaz 5 times on the street, wherever. But the same kind of a thing when it comes to Trikala Sandhya, it is across the board for all. Chaturvanya Sandhya is specified, approaches are specified, but the clarity of, say, how to do it not being there and it is not being done completely changes the picture.
Yeah.
Somebody who has disciplined life by doing, say, karmakanda would have a greater faith in terms of what
His
they
own
receive,
culture.
rather than, say, somebody who is, say, only speaking but doesn't do that.
So, but there is a major difference between the two systems. They are not similar in this aspect at all. There, all of these are laws as legal laws, mandatory upon them. To the point, and how do they enforce it? By the pain of death. In their society, if a mullah goes and kills a woman who shows her hair, he gets to go to Jannat by doing something which is iman ka kaam karna. So the enforcement there is mandatory. Here, we cannot imagine anything in our situation where if you have not done a ritual, you ought to be killed. But there, everything comes to that extreme act of violence very quickly. That's how they have maintained the parallel structures all the way. That they have a book which is more strong, they have daily, and see, it comes at the cost of extreme uniformity, extreme violent uniformity. They have no other ritual if it's a so-called Arabian Islam or Indonesian Islam or Indian Islam. But here, every kshetra will have some differences, every sampradaya will have some differences. So if you go from here to other, sampradaya will be different, bhasha will be different, kshetra will be different. What happens to them? The same ayat, the same verse, the same language, the same way you bend, the same way you get up. The same thing, everything same all over. That's why it's extreme violence to someone's nature. That's why I say never should we compare ourselves to them. Because ours is one of the greatest value systems in societies that were ever created, including all the there can be many debates on this, whether what to do, what not to do. I'm not going into that debates. But there is an extreme violence to our nature. Because Muhammad, he lived in a desert, so they used to, after eating, they used to put the water here and then ऐसे पानी नीचे निकाल के थाली में निकालते थे. उसके बाद थाली को करके पीते थे क्योंकि इनके यहाँ पानी नहीं होता था. They still do it here, in Bangalore, in Kerala. That is kshetra, ecology, सबका वो जो violence करना है, that they do. That's why they are able to enforce it. See, asuras always have it easy. It's very easy to believe. It's very easy. That's why it's very easy. For us, it's difficult to hold all this diversity together and yet be particular. So it's always going to be difficult for us. But by the dint of being true, and then by the dint of being wrong, we will win and they will lose, and that's how we have to.
Sir, I want to add to the answer to the first part of this question. Why the Hindus lost out and the Muslims, they had more children. That is Congress propaganda. They only started this Hum Do Hamare Do for the Hindus. They didn't enforce it on the Muslims. Still, what was unofficially done by Sanjay Gandhi in Turkmen Gate, which is actually unfortunate, that forced sterilization. They should have adopted this policy uniformly. They actually wanted to control the population. Till today, we don't have a population control bill because certain sectors in the Hindu segment believe that it will affect our population also. And till UCC comes, we will not be having clarity on that. So
no, but I think
that is the reason actually.
That is also
the same problem that say Pankaj is pointing
That's
out.
what. So
because again the universalizing and the
Yeah.
kind of uniformity would create the same kind of an issue of
very
maintaining
violent
that diversity.
uniformity.
Sir,
Yeah,
I
that
have
is
one
the problem.
point, sir.
Also, this
Yeah.
population, what's happening? There is also a biological reason. World over, fertility rates are dropping. All populations.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
See, with ideology, you can keep up 1 to 2 decades. Beyond that, even they won't be able to keep up. So I keep telling also.
Yeah, but what happens? The Congress did got
Yeah.
specifically only for us.
Yeah.
हम तो हमारे दो was brought in specifically to control.
वो तो सब हिंदू सारे laws हमारे लिए हैं ना, उनके
वही
लिए
तो उसके लिए तो कुछ भी नहीं है.
That is true.
वही तो.
That is true. But अभी क्या होगा? They will gain 4%.
Yeah.
हम 83 से 84 से
Correct.
80 पर आ गए हैं.
Yes, yes.
80 से 78 तक कुछ होगा.
हाँ.
उसके बाद they will also do. So this is no वो जो doomsday scenario बोल रहे हैं ना कि 2050 में हम minority वो majority. That's not going to happen. उनके and they have much more significant problems than us.
Because of
If you go to any clinic, the number of population, I'm not talking about births, the number of problems that the chronic diseases, diabetes, BP, all of these problems in their society is far worse than ours.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we are, now there are lots of diseases in our society. We are a healthy society, I'm not saying, but they are far worse than us. So when this table hits, it's going to be very difficult for them. They are going to hit that table or plateau also. And then for them also it will be extremely difficult. Turkey is not able to keep up. Egypt is not able to keep up. Morocco is not able to keep up. Matlab in front of Russia, of course, they are going down in real numbers. But that's different. But even those countries are not able to keep up their population. Iran is not able to keep up. Such very ideological countries.
But Pankaj, with all light humor, should you fight your enemy or the Dalali?
Both. Why not?
Sir, I have.
Your thoughts more.
Yeah, Dalal, of course. See, वो क्या करते हैं? There
I
are.
have one question, sir.
There is a famous movie in which there is a scene. एक traitor, उनको पता चलता है there is a traitor. So first they shoot the traitor, and then they move on to that. तो वो तो है ही, of course. But we cannot neglect anything. Everything is so. Swamiji was saying something. I'm sorry.
Sir, I have one question, sir. Please. I am
sir.
waiting for this question, sir.
Yeah.
Because I have one that question, sir. So enemy, I saw this status enemy topic, but I find earlier means Harishat Varga is our enemies. Harishat Varga, Kamaka, Kama, Krodha, Arshad, I am talking about internal, not external. I am only internal talking. I am always internal person, internal. So that is not. But last 5 years I am studying some Vedantic philosophy. I find that we are some philosophy is saying we are supreme. Some philosophy we are supreme. But I adopted that. But just say don't say outside we are supreme. Internal should be. But I am finding myself now that I am the something servant of God, then I will be safe. I am talking about external, I am internal. I am servant of some God, higher energy. Then I become very powerful. That is just one philosophy. But other philosophy saying you are supreme and don't say you are supreme to outside. Don't say. Then you will be safe. If you say you are supreme, if you are saying you are supreme outside, you will be thrown out from the house, you are thrown out from society. Same thing happening to many people in society. Everything. That's what I am saying. I am studying 2 or 3 philosophies. My internal observation, what I am saying that I am the servant of some supreme energy, God. Openly saying, I am a servant of God. I am doing my work. I am safe. Wherever I may be. I was working in Pune. I was working in Bangalore. I was working in Maharashtra.
That is okay.
Whether it is okay or what I am saying.
Yes, Swamiji will answer to that. We were discussing actually before coming here.
Always there will be times when there is a increase in the sattva and decrease in the sattva. All our Puranas they have described very well when Hiranyakashipu was in the vogue and he was in the rise. And Puranas say it is because of the God's desire that Asura should go up and Devas should come down. Such things happen nevertheless. But it does not mean that we should give up our efforts to conserve the Dharma.
Yes.
That is more important thing. That's why we are, of course, we are internal enemies and we need to do so many things about internal sadhana. But more important thing is understand who is trying to destroy the very framework of the Dharma. That is what we are concerned. And for my observation is, earlier there used to be some kind of the framework for the protection of the Dharma. Now maybe in the last 1000 years, maybe because of the so much of some sections of society they are following different acharyas and different things in the last 1000 years, not before 1000 years. There was only one rule. All the people they should have followed the one rule and it was there. But now because of the invasion or whatever reason, now we have lost one kind of unity. So to inculcate the idea of Dharma into the mind of people, we should have some organized kind of parishat or authority like Pope or whatever, without which we have survived after all these years because of the decentralized nature of our education system and all other things. But now with the increased information wars and all other things, we should have some kind of central authority or the people who have some kind of committee to direct people through the aspects of Dharma. Whereas this Vishwa Hindu Parishad and all other people, they have concentrated more their energies on the construction of Ram Janmabhoomi and all other things. But as per the daily codes and conducts of the people, they are not giving any attention. I don't know how it is going to happen. The only thing we can protect our Dharma that is common to all the people in India, that is to have such kind of central committee comprising of learned people. It is the need of the hour. And how it is going to happen, I don't know. Because so many bogus people are coming in the area.
Yes, sir. That is a problem. Who is the real, who is bogus, we don't know.
So it's difficult, but I don't think it's impossible. It might happen in future. I think this churn is happening.
Your next book should be to have such kind of one committee or
Yes. We will think about it. Yeah. One to your answer also.
Yes,
Of course, it's internal enemies we should always fight. But when Mata Sita was kidnapped, Sri Ram could have, saved her inside his heart also, and not gone all the way towards Sri Lanka to, save her. But he did. If somebody kidnaps my child, will I fight that enemy internally? No, I'll go and kill.
But all thoughts comes from internal first, then it goes outside, sir.
वो उसका तो अंदर से आ गया ना
The utpatti will be internal, then it go to outside.
Yeah, that's okay. But I'm
Internal
saying,
should be strong. Then we can speak action, thoughts, words, actions.
Of course.
You are rightly given a speech, sir. I'm very happy. I'm surrendered to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, one last thing I would like to add with Acharya's permission. I would like you to include, if possible, the.
No,
because I am ill, that's why I am sitting.
No,
Otherwise I will not.
I said all this.
One positive example of Shatrubodh, which we can see in Mahabharata, in the episode. Become heavy on the Pandavas except Arjuna on that particular day, which eventually led to the death of Abhimanyu. So Yudhishthira should have actually apologized to Bhima and also to Arjuna that because of his mistake they lost their grandson.
That would
Sorry,
actually
that
be a
child.
very serious problem, sir. If you actually find fault with Yudhishthira, Bhimasena would be very angry with you. I am very clear on this.
No, I understand, but in
The point is, see, if you find a fault with Yudhishthira, Bhimasena would be the first one to be very angry with you.
ಆಯ್ತು ಸರ್ ಅವಕಾಶ ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್
ಒಂದೇ ನಿಮಿಷ
ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ
ಇದೆ.
Not like you, sir. I'm not talking this like a,
ಅಲ್ಲ,
like you are
ಒಂದೇ
talking.
ನಿಮಿಷ ಒಂದೇ ನಿಮಿಷ
I'm asserting.
ಇಲ್ಲ ಒಂದೇ ನಿಮಿಷ ಹೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು ಇವಾಗ
ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ
ಇವಾಗ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಇವಾಗ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಆಚಾರ್ಯ
ಆಚಾರ್ಯ, ಮುಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ?
ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಇವಾಗ
ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಷ್ಟೇನೆ, ನಾನೇನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಶತ್ರುಬೋಧ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ವ್ಯೂ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ಅವ್ನು ಶತ್ರು ಆಗಿದ್ದೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇನೆ, ನಾನು ಬೇರೆ ವಿಚಾರ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಗಮನಕ್ಕೆ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಹಿಂದೂಗಳ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಶತ್ರುಗಳಿಗೆ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಇದ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಅದೇ ಮಾತು ಒಂದು ಪೃಥ್ವಿರಾಜ್ ಚೌಹಾಣ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಮೊಹಮ್ಮದ್ ಗೋರಿ ಸಾಯಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ ಅವಾಗ ಅವರ್ ಡೈನೆಸ್ಟಿ ವುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಎಂಡೆಡ್. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ an example I was trying to give. Regardless of that.
Certainly, please. It is very difficult to understand the nuances of the dharma, but it is very important to understand.
So, Bharavi Kiratarjuniya, the Yudhishthira Bhima Samvada, Draupadi Samvada, very nice. I am studying now, KSOU, MA Sanskrit. I am very happy. Bhima,
Yes.
Yudhishthira Samvada,
Yes,
Draupadi,
that
very
is what Bhima was very much strong
enough and
to understand
intelligent.
who is enemy.
Correct.
Whereas Dharmaraja was little bit smoother
ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ.
on the enemy side,
Yeah.
and they had to endure all the difficult things, and there are so many points to be discussed even in the which is dharma, which is not dharma, and all other things. Even Draupadi asked many questions against Dharmaraja. All these things. Apart from all these things, it is important that the main or aim is to protect the framework of the dharma.
Absolutely.
People should have absolute observation of the dharma. And these Western people, they have very much not. I don't even call our main enemies is Muslims, because faith system is little or same, whether women go to heaven or not, apart from all these things. But even Christians, they were not against the idea of dharma. But the modern imperialistic ideology, Charvak ideology, that broke away from the mainstream Christianity.
Yes.
Of course, even Christianity, they wanted to replace the Hinduism with the Christianity. That is one problem. But the main problem is the modern ideology of neo-Charvakism. The individual right is more important than anything else. individual is more important than the family, and family is important than the nation. That is also very much big problem nowadays. If you think about the dharma, what dharma we have to follow and all other things, the ahimsa, satya, asteya, shocha, indriya nigraha, all these kinds of dharmas, now they are totally broken away because of the power of the modern liberalism or industrialization or the globalization forces, which want to earn as much as money possible and throw away all the rules in between. That is the problem. So we have to understand threefold enemies. One is the modern ideology, Sarvak ideology, and behind them these two people are sitting. So each and every person of the country should be aware of the problems that we are facing. In that manner, Pankaj Saxena should be thanked for his really great work. Enemy. I thank him for delivering this thought-provoking lecture here. Though we are very few people here because it is the Krishna Janmashtami and Poornaprajna Vidyapita is not a very famous venue for such thought-provoking lecture. Because it is mostly people are in the festival fervor.
Yes.
But still, we have had great discussions, and I welcome the Pankaj Saxena again and again. And it is our intention of the Poornaprajna Samshodhana Mandira to have this kind of civilizational understanding and the understanding of the different dharmas, Christianity, Muslim, Islam, and Zoroastrianism and all other things. But still, Poornaprajna Samshodhana Mandira is mainly focusing on the scriptural studies and all other things. So many things are going, but still we intend to. But it is very important things. We should understand the Islam and Christianity in depth. We should have scholars who can speak about the internal conflicts between the Islam and Christianity and all other things. It is our intention of the Swamiji. Even now, Vishwaprasantira Swamiji, our present Kulapati, is very much interested in all these topics. And as well as our founder Kulapati Sri Vishweshwar Swamiji was very much interested. We hope we will be able to achieve this thing. And I am very much thankful for the people who brought Pankaj Saxena ji here. And we hope we will continue to do that.
In my book, I have included secularism and modernity also as one of the enemies. Later chapters are on them.
That is very interesting. It is one book, Essence of Dharma, Swamiji has given us. I hope and I thank all the people who are here, even with very short notice. Many people always accuse me of the short notice.
I got 2:30 I got status, sir. 2:30 I came within 20 minutes.
That's why people, if they don't accuse me of short temper, but at least not even for the lectures, also always for the many sabhas that we conduct.
Just take a photo with this book also.
Vinay. Very great to meet you, sir, and I will certainly see it and. ಇದು